Hey everybody. So I'm going to be reading Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1. Wine is a mocker and beer is a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. So you can apply this to the modern world and you can use wine as you could sort of replace that with drugs, I think. And so it's heroin is a mocker and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. So whoever is led astray by these things are not wise. Why would you do that to begin with? Whenever you take these things, if you are led astray from them, it's not wise because why would you do it in the first place? You know it can lead you down to a very dark place. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 2. A king's wrath strikes terror like the roar of a lion. Those who anger him forfeit their lives. So, whenever I first read this, I was like, yo, doesn't Jesus say in like Matthew's chapter 7, verse 1 through 2 says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be used against you. And so, I originally interpreted that as do not judge, but rather it's saying it's opening the window for for society to thrive, right? Because imagine, modern society without a judge. How are people going to be, like punished in like this finite world? And so it's saying a king can have I think it is implementing that, or it is implying that a king should have the authority to put others in prison. Verse 3. It is one's honor to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel. I love this verse because strife basically means angry or bitter agreement over fundamental issues or conflict. So the Bible speaks in a way that makes it to where if everyone were to follow it, life would go very smooth. And this is an example of that. It seems the Bible acknowledges that it can be productive, but don't take my word for it. So think about how stupid it is. It's a waste of time. Especially if you've grown up in a argument of household or whatever. It is. You see how useless it is. It is simply just a waste of your time. And it's angry. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's no point in being that angry. But every fool is quick to quarrel. I love that because it's saying you're quick to it. You want to. I remember before I was real Christian, I wanted to argue. And I even joked around about it. But really, you're stupid for that. But verse 4. Sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. I love this verse, and it applied to me. And whenever I first read that, I was like, oh shoot. Because it's basically saying, for example, let's say I turn 18, and then I'm called to work somewhere, like on a Family Dollar. And so then I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'll just do it later on. And then later on, let's say, I just need the money for something and I don't have it. And then I'm like, why, Lord, would you put me in this situation? It's because I didn't work. And that's sort of a less meaningful one too. Think about spiritually. Let's say I don't read my Bible, I don't go to church, I don't do any of these things. And then I'm like, why am I so far away from you, Lord? Or why am I so tempted? It's because it's my fault as well. It is because I did not work beforehand, therefore I did not receive the reward. Verse 5, the purpose of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. So I liked this verse because I used to think that you can still, but there's a point where you should not focus so much on yourself, but more focus on God. But it says, but one who has insight draws them out. And so whenever I first read that, I was like, I thought I meant, but one who has insight draws them out as in God. But I'm reading New International Version. So if I were to go to KJV, King James Version, counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw them out. That's a man of understanding, not because whenever I heard but one who has insight draws them out, I thought that one was God. But no, it's a man. And we, it sounds kind of dumb, but we can actually, reflect on ourselves, and we, can focus on why we feel the way we can, but we shouldn't lean on our own understanding. Verse 6, many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find? So this is interesting because, like, though many claim to have goodness, who can find someone who is faithful? It's talking about loyalty. It's saying who can actually find someone who is truly loyal to the very end. And that is a theme in Proverbs, or around these few chapters. And it says many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find. It's also implying that who does have unfailing love. It's saying, that makes you think, do I have unfailing love? Am I loyal? Am I truly loyal to those around me? Verse 7, the righteous lead blameless lives, blessed are the children after them. So, this is a little bit interesting because it's not necessarily a promise, I think. I don't really know. But I think it's more of a principle. It's like, yeah, obviously, if there are righteous parents, and the children are pretty darn blessed, right? Because they're righteous, and that helps them, like, get more righteous, and that's always the good thing. Verse 8, when a king sits on his throne to judge, he winnows out all evil with his eyes. And this goes back to the judging thing. This goes back to, like, that's even more judging. And like I said before, it's like, it kind of seems all over the place, but it's a pattern. Because look, verse 2, a king's wrath strikes terror like the roar of a lion, those who anger him forfeit their lives. And then 6 verses later, when a king sits on his throne to judge, he winnows out all evil with his eyes. And then, well, sneak peek, scroll down to verse 26, a wise king winnows out the wicked, he drives the threshing wheel over them. And so there's an interesting pattern. I might show it on the screen, not sure, but I have highlighted it to where you see that pattern. It's, I don't know, maybe it's just like poetry, so it's some sort of like repetition, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know. That's interesting though, because that allows once again for society to function very well. Verse 9, who can say, I have kept my heart pure, I am clean and without sin? I mean, simple as that. Like, no one is good, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that. Verse 10, differing weights and differing measures, the Lord detests them both. And so what that means is, no, that doesn't mean if you are a weightlifter, then the Lord detests you, It means if you are changing the standards for certain people just for some sort of prejudice, or just because why not, just to be unfair, then, the Lord detests that, and that's what that means. Verse 11, even small children are known by their actions. So is their conduct really pure and upright? That's really interesting, especially if you want to get into like the moral, theological philosophy of it. So like if a baby dies, will they go to heaven? And this is something that you might want to consider if you want to go into that. Verse 12, ears that hear and eyes that see, the Lord has made them both. Now, that doesn't really make sense, but you look at verses 1 through 7. I'm probably going to show this on screen. But you look at verses 1 through 7, and it's sort of scattered brain, right? It's just like something completely different after the other. Like, first it's talking about the king's wrath strikes terror, and then the one after is it is an honor to avoid arguments. And then one after is talking about you shouldn't be lazy. So it's like, what? And then, I mean, it's not necessarily wrong to do that. But then you get to verses 8 through 12, and it sort of wraps all together. It's sort of like the king judges, that is his role. He looks for evil and eliminates it. But is anyone truly even pure? Even the kings and judges can be evil, with double standards, which are, of course, hated by the Lord. Even small children are not truly pure. And of course, the other end, the witness. God gave you eyes and ears so that you could tell the judge what you have seen. And that's my human dumbed down version of this. It seems to all tie together about judging. Anyway, that's like, I don't know, I kind of noticed that it ties together like that. Verse 13. Do not love sleep, or you will grow poor. Stay awake, and you will have food to spare. I went a little bit deep into this. So it's like the Bible is already assuming that we are doing something productive with each day. So it's saying whenever you sleep, you're wasting those productive days. But if you were to, like, I don't know, if you're just lazy like me, and then you don't make those days count, then this verse doesn't really make sense. So it's assuming that your days are productive.
So for this verse to make sense, you must first make your days count.
It's no good, says the buyer, then goes off and boasts about the purchase. That's verse 14. And this is basically just talking about scammers, right? Scammers are bad. First, he's lying, and then he's doing it for his own greed, and then he has pride in that. So that's three whole things right there. And that's something. Greed and lies, like, tangle up together real well. And so, I don't know, that's for one of the simpler ones. Verse 15. Gold there is, and rubies in abundance, but lips that speak knowledge are a rare jewel. So, I love that because it's like, it sort of ties together with 14, verse 14, because greed, right? And then verse 15 is like, oh, you might want gold, you might want rubies, but there's basically tons of that compared to people who speak knowledge. You know how rare it is for people to speak the truth and how valuable that is? Because, I mean, you gotta look at it realistically. Gold and stuff, you can have, like, I won't say gold because it's not very applicable to today, but you could have, like, Jeff Bezos money, right? You could be, like, the most powerful person in the world, but that wouldn't matter anything because whenever you get into heaven, what's that going to give you? And so if I were to get $200 billion, that would be worth nothing compared to giving $3 to a homeless person, because I am storing up the treasures in heaven, and those treasures are eternal because heaven is eternal. And so whenever it says, but lips that speak knowledge are a rare jewel, that is, I think, applicable to what I just said. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit stumped on this one. So I might be thinking, why are you making the video? But uh, I think I got it. Verse 16 says, take the garment of one who puts up security for a stranger. Hold it in pledge if it is done for an outsider. So I basically just got, be cautious if you are a guarantor, I guess. So it's like, if you are trying to take financial responsibility as a job, trying to take financial responsibility for someone else as a job to get paid for that, be careful. Verse 17. Food gained by fraud tastes sweet, but one ends up with a mouthful of gravel. I love it whenever they use that figurative language. And it ties together with the scammer verse. It's no good, says the buyer, then goes off and posts about the purchase. Because there truly is work of a scammer, but it will be their demise. They will wind up in a worse situation at the very least. And so they might, like, actually work for it. They might actually do that stuff. They might actually get a reward, but it is nothing. It's actually like a part of your demise. Verse 18. Plans are established by seeking advice. So if you wage war, obtain guidance. So think about this as an individual. If you want to go to war with the devil, seek guidance. How? Read the Bible, pray, talk to a truly wise man, stuff like that. And that's using it like figuratively, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so if you wage war, obtain guidance. If you were going to go to, I guess, quote unquote, spiritual war, spiritual battle, then you want to know what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I guess you're kind of always at war, but so therefore you should always get guidance. Verse 19. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. Now, it doesn't really make sense in this, honestly. So it's like a gossip betrays a confidence. I don't know. That doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe someone else is smart, but not saying I'm smart. But you look at King James Version, he that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets. Therefore, meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. So it's not saying someone who talks too much, even though that can, you can still take that. But it's saying someone who own like talks just to not just to, but they want to flatter you. They want to just get your attention. Think about like people pleasers. So it's like people who sort of lie to you just so they can get their reputation better, just so you can like them more. Like don't mess with them or meddle with them, as King James Version says. If someone, verse 20, if someone curses their father or mother, their lamp will be snuffed out in pitch darkness. That's fine. But curses their father or mother, that goes back to like Exodus, you know what I'm saying? So it's like honor thy mother and thy father. It's, you don't want to do that. And it says their lamp will be snuffed out in pitch darkness. Later on it talks about that same lamp. So I'll talk about that later. Verse 21. An inheritance claimed too soon will not be blessed at the end. So that took me a little bit to get, but it's like I put a note here. When acquiring wealth hastily and rushing for it, you will not have it in the end. Work honestly and thoroughly, whether it be short term or long term. Verse 22. Do not say, I'll pay you back for this wrong. Wait for the Lord, and he will avenge you. That's something you need to have faith in. That's something like you need to trust that God will avenge you, because people will do wrong to you. It's inevitable. That's one of the few promises, is that we will, as Christians, face trials and tribulations. And so whenever people do wrong to us, we, you know, like we want justice because we're created in the image of God. But God also wants justice, and we have to trust in Him that He will do the right thing. Because if we try to get revenge and we try to sort of put justice on that person, we might do it the wrong way, and we might hinder others, and we might, hurt others, and we don't want to do that. But God can do it in a way that might help them. And, you might not want to help your enemies, but you should. You should love your enemies, but you might also want revenge. And that's really complex, but you have to trust in God that He will do the right thing, that He will do it in a way that He is the best way. He will do it the best way because He is perfect. And you have to trust that. Verse 23. The Lord detests differing weights, and dishonest scales do not please Him. So, talking about justice like I was before, if you're trying to be just and you're putting dishonest scales, that's not going to please God. And that's kind of a given, but, you know, confirm it. And this also, once again, ties with verse 10, differing weights and differing measures. The Lord possessed in both. And that might just be like poetic repetition, but maybe someone else is smart enough to like find the secret message in that or something, because there are secret messages in the Bible. Verse 24. A person's steps are directed by the Lord. How then can anyone understand their own way? The Lord controls it all, right? So how can we understand our own way if He is controlling us? If our steps are in His path, right? So it's like, if God has a plan for you, how can you trust your own way? How can you understand His plan? Verse 25. It is a trap to dedicate something rashly, and only later to consider one's vows. So there is a verse, Matthew 5:34, which says, But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne. And it's like, why don't vow anything to begin with. It even says anything more than a yes or no is from evil. So do with that as you wish. But it's applies to here too. Maybe this is the reason. It's because, let's say I make a vow, right? And then later on, unintentionally, I break that vow. And if I did not dedicate something so rashly, if I did not jump so quick to do something and to break that vow, then that vow would not have been broken to begin with. So don't do anything rashly, because you might just break that vow. This is also saying be thoughtful in what you do, be mindful in what you do. I'm pretty sure somewhere it talks about I am always planning my next step. I am always This is the third time it's talking about this. A wise king winnows out the wicked. He drives a threshing wheel over them. It's similar enough to the other verses, so I won't go over it. Verse 27. The human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that sheds light on one's inmost being. That is crazy verse. That is like, whoa. So it's saying the human spirit is the lamp that the Lord uses to test and see clearly your inmost being. But I think that means heart. The Spirit is the lamp of the Lord to discover and explore and test your heart. And with that knowledge, the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord. Look at this. If someone curses their father or mother, their lamp will be snuffed out in pitch darkness. That's, you know what I'm saying? You can really tie those together, and it's something, it's a little bit scary. Verse 28. Love and faithfulness keep a king safe. Through love, his throne is made secure. So, I mean, that's really applicable today, because we got a lot of leaders, we got a lot of people who are definitely not loving, right? So, your throne's not going to be secure if you ain't loving. And we got a lot of not loving and unloving leaders. Verse 29. The glory of young men is their strength. Gray hair, the splendor of the old. So, like, think about that. There's different roles, I guess. And that's sort of self-explanatory, so I'll just go with that. And this is probably my favorite verse. This is the last one, verse 30. This is probably my favorite verse of this whole chapter. Blows and wounds scrub away evil, and beatings purge the inmost being. So what does purge mean? Because I'm someone who's not very smart. It means to rid of an unwanted quality, condition, or feeling. And so, oh my gosh, that is amazing. Because blows and wounds, the sufferings of life, they scrub away at the evil. And those beatings that again and again, it purges, it takes away the evil and the bad and the root sin of the heart, right? And we have to recognize that our sufferings, our trials and tribulations are part of God's plan. Perhaps to, we don't know his ways, but perhaps to get rid of the evil that is the root sin. Because whenever we commit sins, that is part of our root sin. That started all the way from Genesis, from the story of Adam and Eve. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for watching and listening. I hope you learned something from this. I studied this for a good while. I love you guys. And truthfully, I hope y'all get closer to the Lord.